On May 16, 2025, tornadoes hit the St. Louis area, causing extensive damage and loss of life. Purina stands with the St. Louis community. Throughout the recovery and relief efforts, Purina will continue to support pets and pet owners impacted by the recent storms. Learn more about how they are helping by visiting newscenter.purina.com.
Welcome to winning-stl, where we have conversations about how St. Louis can best compete and win in the battle for talent, jobs, growth, and equity. Winning-stl is presented by Purina, who creates richer lives for pets and the people who love them, and has proudly called St. Louis home since 1894. Joining me today is Ed Skapinok, Chief Commercial Officer for Explore St. Louis, the organization responsible for selling St. Louis as a convention, meeting, and leisure destination. So Ed, thank you so much for coming. Great to have you today.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
So Ed, you're pretty new in this role. I think you said you started at the end of July, this last July. We did the intro there, and I attempted to summarize what your role is, but why don't you tell us what your role is and how you kind of are going to look to define success at Explore St. Louis?
Well, the title is Chief Commercial Officer, which is actually a new role for the destination marketing industry, the convention center business. It's something that's actually been prominent in the hospitality industry, where I was for over 35 years, and other industries throughout the region. Essentially, it takes the customer-facing sides of the business and brings those together under a single executive leader. We've got 1,000 paid partnerships at Explore St. Louis, businesses that count on us to help them be successful, especially with the tourism economy that we have here. We've got 200 visitor volunteers, which I love, an army of people that donate their time because they care so much about the region and want to be a part of the visitor experience. Then we also have our Meet St. Louis Convention Services team. They help visitors, groups especially, when they are here and they need to do activations off-site away from the convention center. They bring the city together if they need to close streets, get a permit done, something like that for an event, a festival, off-site activations. And then even the St. Louis Film Office is something that's a part of the organization that we have. So I think Explore St. Louis is involved in a lot of things that I don't think everybody realizes. They certainly think about us for our tourism marketing.
Absolutely.
There's a lot that we do to attract tourism from many different angles and also service those groups when they're here. So really, Explore St. Louis is an economic development organization. The levers that we pull are tourism marketing and convention sales, but really the impact that we have and the way we measure success is about the impact that we have in the region. Visitors, we have 24 million visitors that come here every year to the city and county of St. Louis.
Wow.
And the economic impact is huge. It's $5.7 billion of direct spending from the visitors that are here. So put another way, it's the same tax benefit because of the economic impact. Every household in the city and county of St. Louis receives the equivalent of a $1,200 annual tax benefit because of the dollars that visitors bring.
So people would, of course, as you mentioned, associate you with conventions and with sporting events and you know, they are filling hotels. They're going out to restaurants. They're just buying tickets. They're doing things and hopefully having a great experience and telling people about it, right? I mean, it's a virtuous circle if we do it right.
It is. I mean, 10.7% of all the private sector jobs in St. Louis are related to tourism.
Interesting.
The best thing for the visitor experience is to have a vibrant local experience. Visitors love to interact with locals. They love to go to the places that locals enjoy.
Absolutely.
And it's actually really good for both because if you think about it, tourism's not just an economic impact driver, it's also a cultural impact driver. When people come here, we have the opportunity to influence their perspective on things like arts, music, culinary scenes, history. You know, all of these people coming here, make sure that they take away something really beneficial from the city. In fact, when I got here in July, I was really impressed. I moved here from out of the area. I'm originally from San Francisco. I was living in Sonoma County wine country for the previous 4 years just before I moved here.
Okay.
Great areas. Love it.
Beautiful. Yep.
They're wonderful places to live. But what really impressed me about St. Louis were the neighborhoods. And so I was so impressed by that. It helped make my decision to move here and advance my career and really stake my future on success here in St. Louis. That when I was talking with our convention sales team, I said, how can we incorporate the magic that are these neighborhoods into the convention sales experience, but also the convention attendee experience?
Both, right? You need both. You need to get the business. You need to get the associations and businesses here for their event.
We do.
But you need the visitors then to get a taste of what we do at our best, right?
Too often people go to a convention and they go airplane, meeting room, airplane.
Yeah.
And that's not a way to experience a destination, especially one that has so much to offer as we do, and maybe doesn't even get the attention for having so much that it has to offer. So we want to make sure that people get to experience that. So we've got a major convention coming to town, Meeting Professionals International. They're holding their World
That's a big
Education
group,
Congress
yeah.
here. 2,500 attendees, about half of those are event planners that plan meetings and conventions for their organizations. So it's a great way to
It's a tough
showcase
crowd,
it.
isn't it?
It really is. And a lot of people call it the Super Bowl of conventions because, if you do well with that one, it has a ripple effect.
If I know about them, they must be big because I don't work in that space, and even I heard of this event.
Absolutely. And it's a big one. They took that message to heart about the neighborhoods. They saw what we were talking about when we brought their leadership here. So in addition to all the events that are taking place at the America Center for a convention this size, they're also doing learning labs and different activations. We're taking them out to 5 different neighborhoods, not just to go have a dinner and then come back or go see something, but they're doing real meaningful work as part of their convention. Their corporate social responsibility activities are going to be in Forest Park. We're taking them to Grand Center for one of their events. We're also showing them downtown West and many other places where they get to see and experience the city. As we mentioned, the neighborhoods being the soul of the destination.
Right.
This is a group that really gets it and is embracing it and helping us promote that.
So let's talk about the new convention center. Obviously, it was in the news a lot. There's always drama on things. My office looks right out on it, so I'm happy to see it. Is that helpful for you? Is that making your job and St. Louis's job easier to bring in these events?
It is. It's a huge asset, and the expansion is something we need to do, not just to promote our cause, but even just to try and keep pace with many of these other destinations. There are communities that are investing billions in their convention centers and to try and attract more tourism. So I think the enhancements that were done, obviously this predates me.
Yeah.
They were just wrapping up as I got here. But some things that we've done there that are really beneficial. The convention center, those that have been, the America Center essentially is an L-shaped facility with the exhibit halls. So now it's a T-shaped facility. And that might not seem like such a big difference, but it really is, because with the new 72,000 square foot exhibit hall that we added, what we call Hall 4X, there's a new entrance that is there on MLK. But what it allows us to do is have 2 large conventions simultaneously in the America Center, and we have visitors enter from one entrance, depending on which configuration they're using, and then visitors enter on the other entrance off of Washington Avenue. So it allows us to be much more operationally sound, and it creates less congestion for the convention attendees.
Ed, I'm sure you guys take a good hard look at visitor feedback. What's the type of feedback that we're getting, good and bad?
Yeah, we do survey groups that are at the America Center, and 3 out of 4, they walk away with a great experience. They feel like it exceeded their expectations. The best thing that we find, though, is that pretty much all around, visitors say that their impression of St. Louis changed for the better after they came here and had their convention at America Center.
That's great.
So that's really powerful. And I think that what we do come up against are either negative perceptions of St. Louis as a destination from people that have never been here because they've heard things from external sources that have turned them off, or they were here 10, 12, 15 years ago, remember the city and the community a certain way, and they just haven't come back. So I think letting people know about what has been happening here, all of the great things that are going on, that's how we can really differentiate ourselves and change the attitudes. One of the biggest competitors we have, though, is our own internal perception of ourselves. People cautioned me this. When I got to St. Louis, they said, the biggest critics of St. Louis are the people that live in St. Louis. Yeah. And, I've certainly seen that, and it's unfortunate. I do think that, for whatever reason, people have been here for generations. They've seen a lot more than I have here. But I've got to tell you, being an outsider and coming to the area, I'm really inspired by what I see here.
Ed, I totally agree with what you're saying. I've probably in this series talked to more than 25 people in varying roles across this region. And some of the ones that are most bullish about it are not from here.
Right.
Because maybe they're not burdened with what was, and we used to have this or we used to have that. It's like, oh my gosh, wow, there's some great things here now, and there's significant potential that just needs to be properly and carefully, managed and
Right.
and manifested. What comes up a lot in these discussions is the sense that the business community is probably more unified now than perhaps it was, 10 years ago, which is positive, and that helps because you need this alignment, I think, because nothing is easy.
Some of our competitor markets, especially the large convention markets, they get so much funding from state government,
Right.
city government, county government. Ours is a little different. The Explore St. Louis essentially is funded by a portion of the transient occupancy tax that
right.
visitors pay when they stay at hotels
Right.
in the city and county of St. Louis. So the more effective we are at getting people here and getting them to come back and stay and repeat over time, the better we're going to be. We're going to have more resources for marketing the destination. So it creates an upward spiral. But when we don't have as many visitors here, when the hotels are feeling high levels of vacancy, then that diminishes our reach, and we're not able to be as competitive with some of these other destinations that have those funding sources.
Well, I'll tell you, as someone who works downtown, has worked downtown for a long time, it is plain as day when there is a convention in town, there's action, there's buzz, all of a sudden there's lines at the restaurants,
Right.
and that's encouraging. It to me hints at what could be. Now, I understand you can't have a convention every single day, but the vibrancy that it can bring to downtown is very notable when when it is there and versus when it's not.
The best thing we can do is have a vibrant downtown community.
Yeah.
People feel safer in areas that are active and lively. They see other people. It's just good for the community. So, having that, that type of activity is good. I think also business travel. That's something that normally an organization like Explore St. Louis doesn't get involved in because we're
Okay.
more leisure
Yeah.
or convention impact. But, my experience in hospitality for 35 years tells me how important business travel is to a region and to the individual hotels that are there. It essentially gives a taller platform for the hotels to stand on when they're developing, new business. Same thing for us. So, if we've got, a couple of percentage points, nightly that we could count on in business travel activity, we're going to be able to be much more focused on bringing in even higher yield convention business on that, on top of that. It's also something that goes a long way to supporting the local businesses here, maybe ones that don't even think that they're involved in the tourism economy, but they are. And so you've got, a lot of business travelers, you've got a lot of leisure travelers, and you've got a lot of meeting and convention travelers. That's a lot of economic impact, and we need all of those.
So I'm betting you are in favor of the proposed airport work that they want to do. The single terminal, greater amenities, better for business travel. That sounds right in line with what you're your vision for St. Louis tourism.
Right. Well, our convention planners tell us they like the flights that we have coming in.
Yeah.
But they do talk to us about wanting to see certain enhancements at the airport. So anytime we hear about investment in infrastructure,
Right.
We get excited because that's a good thing for everybody. Something like an airport, again, it just magnifies the benefits that you get there. In fact, we've even started looking. We do really well with about a 5-hour drive radius of getting visitors to come and stay in St. Louis. We've started looking at a 2-hour flight radius because I was doing some shopping online, looking at different places, and I started to notice there's a lot of places you could fly here under 2 hours, and the cost is less than $200. So that's even more accessible in my mind sometimes than driving a great distance. So we're testing some marketing in certain markets right now to see how well does this message resonate, because these aren't places that you would normally think of as a feeder market for St. Louis, but with that kind of access, I think we'd be foolish to ignore it.
What are some of those areas? I'd just be curious.
Well, Houston is one. Houston, we've got, 2 airports there. You've got, Hobby and Intercontinental, so you've got all kinds of, access there. And because of that, there's competition and the flights are inexpensive. It's also a well-heeled consumer. There's a lot of people in
dynamic
Houston,
economy there.
and they're probably going to New Orleans or someplace like that for their culture and their dining. But anything they would find there, I think they're going to find here, and they're going to find that it's much more approachable, and there's a lot that maybe they just haven't considered. St.
Maybe
Louis.
they've just never done it, and I think that's kind of,
Exactly.
people like to try things that they haven't done before. I think.
Exactly,
I hope.
exactly. Atlanta falls into that list. Minneapolis, Denver. We've got really great airlift there. So we're looking to see, is there an opportunity there to bring some of these folks in, on an airplane. I think we're always going to be, a great drive market. 2/3 of the U.S. population can drive here in a day.
Wow.
So, we've got that vehicle access, but it's important to find, new sources of travelers, and, some of these air markets I think are really interesting.
Ed, I think you've successfully made the case that there's a lot riding on your success and the success of Explore St. Louis, whether you're in this industry or not. Is there anything that you would, for people watching this, that you would suggest that we can do that helps this effort?
I think the biggest things people could do to support the effort to strengthen the tourism economy here and all of the businesses that rely on it is really think about the reputation of the destination, how you're representing it.
Yeah.
When you hear people saying things that aren't true about the destination, take that opportunity to have that discussion. We do, and we find that it's really enlightening. The other thing is just working together, particularly the business community here. If your business is here in St. Louis, city, county, have your local meetings here. Have your groups come to St. Louis. There's an opportunity to bring those folks here and have small meetings, large meetings, citywide conventions. That's all great for the region and for the people that live here.
Ed, I think you've, again, really made a compelling case that we all need this to work. So I've really appreciated it. It's something I'm interested personally in, and it's great for the region. So welcome to St. Louis. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really
Thanks for coming, Ed.
appreciate it.